Welcome back to the Neil Oliver Show. Now, earlier in the week, more than 100 tractors rolled past the Houses of Parliament as farmers protested against what they say is a lack of support for UK food production. Save British Farming, one of the organisers, say cheap food imports and unsupportive policies are putting UK food security at risk. Liz Webster, the founder of Save British Farming, joins me now. Good evening, Liz. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Thanks for asking me on.
This is a story, the farming protests in the world, all across Europe and elsewhere. I've been following it with great interest and great concern. And now here we are. It's actually happening here on the home turf in Britain. Can you tell us about the protest and what actually happened that you saw with your own eyes?
Well, we about 100 tractors drove into London. We started organising this a few weeks ago, and we've been working with some Kent farmers, but people came from Dorset and Berkshire and Lancashire and Leicester and all sorts of areas. And whilst, yes, there are protests in Europe, but the farmers across Europe always protest whenever there's change. The unusual thing is that British farmers are protesting, and that's really never really happened before. And it's really to do with the fact that we are facing a deluge of substandard imports. And these imports are able to be packaged with or labelled with a British flag if those foods are processed or packaged here. And that is giving us a huge amount of problems because it's undercutting us, we're tied to high standards, and it's putting us out of business. And we think that the British people need to know that, added to which the government are incentivising us to go into environmental schemes, and that means taking land out of production to grow flowers. And we are worried for the country's food security and food supply. And that's why we have started protesting or demonstrating, and we will continue to highlight these issues until we get change. And we feel that with the election coming, now is a good time for us to do this.
Liz, do you think that the increasingly, I suppose, urbanised population of Britain, and it's not by any means a British condition, do you think there's anything like the appreciation of how much we really do depend on farmers and farming? Do you think that basic connection in people's minds is somehow absent, that they just think the food will somehow magically be in the vast supermarkets?
Absolutely, there is a huge disconnect between food and people thinking that it suddenly arrives on the supermarket shelves by magic, and I think they think farming is a hobby rather than something that actually feeds them. And I think that there is a high expectation for farmers in communities as well, and people don't really understand that it's a really committed job. It's 7 days a week. I mean, we're carving at the moment, it means 24 hours a day you're on duty, and people just don't seem to appreciate what we do, why we do it, and what we mean for the country in particular. And also, if we give up farming in Britain to allow farmers across the world to feed us, we'll have a complete and utter loss of control. And us farmers find that really frightening. And that's why we're out there, because we want to feed the British people. We don't want to give up our farming. If we give up our farming, what will happen to the countryside?
Yeah.
So,
Andrew, to me this beggars belief.
Yes.
That we could be contemplating a situation where we don't actually grow our own food. I mean, I know it might be a little bit down the line, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but imagine if we're on the on-ramp to a situation where we are just dependent on all of our food coming from elsewhere, just because it's cheap.
I know you're absolutely right, and Liz makes a brilliant point in turning around, and we need to educate people as to what these certain things are, because effectively we're being peddled a lie, if you like, when you're saying you can use the British flag when, it's processed or packaged here, and you can still use the British flag. People will think, well, hang on, we must be homegrown. Well, it's not, and that's the reality. The more you can bring the awareness to people on that sort of basis, I think that's helpful.
Liz, I think there's something very powerful about the farming lobby. so to speak. You know, I think where the British population might turn a deaf ear or a blind eye to certain protests from certain quarters, I think it really resonates with people when you talk about the farmers, you know, by inclination, a small c conservative group of people. And that when they're in their tractors, not in the fields planting crops or raising livestock, and they're trundling through central London to try and make their voices heard, do you get a sense that the people are behind you as they have been behind the farmers elsewhere?
We felt absolute love on Monday from the people in London, and all the farmers have really said that. They had people coming up to their tractors, waving. You know, it's Ramadan at the moment, and the people coming out of the mosque came through and jumped all over the tractors and were waving and throwing kisses. And, you know, we actually could cry with the support that we've had from the public, because we're isolated and we're really controlled by DEFRA, who are, you know, and we're put through this red tractor inspection as well, which is incredibly stressful. And to think that our products are ending up on the shelves next to products which don't have to go through any of that farm assurance scheme, and yet we have to go through these massive hoops. It's just so wrong. But then also the public are being misled into thinking they're buying British products when they're not. And so we do feel the British public are behind us, particularly those that feel, you know, connected to the country. And, you know, there's nothing more, I guess, secure, you know, it's about your national security, isn't it, food? Because we do know in the last war, we went down to 30% self-sufficiency when the empire fed us. But now we don't have an empire. And the thought that we could be held to ransom for food is really scary. But in addition to that, the new trade deals, and in particular the CPTPP deal, is a massive threat to British farming. And we really need to ditch these bad trade deals. They're really bad news for us. So we hope that moving forward, as we go into the election, there will be more debate around the need to get out of these deals. Even George Eustice, the former DEFRA secretary, has been incredibly critical of these deals, which Liz Truss was at the centre of negotiating very badly. They are the worst deals in history as far as we're concerned as farmers, and we definitely want out of them.
Liz Webster, I can say unashamedly and unabashedly the farmers have my absolute 100% cast iron support, and I will hope you'll stay in touch, because obviously the plight of the British farmers is closest to my heart of all of the farmers around the world. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.